Just think of it as the rough draft of the podcast world. This is the Newbie Writers Podcast with your hosts Damien Boat and Catherine Bramkamp.
Hey, this is episode 188 of the Newbie Writers Podcast, and we have a special guest who's a author, speaker, camera person, according to Twitter, lover of pastries. We have Whitney Keyes on. Welcome, Whitney. I want to find out why pastries.
Thank you. How did that get out? I'm a lover of all pastries. I'm very open-minded when it comes to pastries, so that's definitely a true factoid on Twitter there.
Did you have to think about that little bit? I read others, and sometimes I groan a bit when I see, someone puts up husband, father. Just put man. Like, it just... Why do we need to do this? I don't know.
I did have to think about it a lot. I know, and Twitter keeps changing. Used to be that you couldn't put very much. Now you can put a lot. But anyway, I threw that in just to get a little extra attention, and because I do love pastries.
Was it a thing of, because obviously, you're listing everything you do, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. But then you're like, I need to put one more word in to fill this line. God, that bagel is amazing.
Okay, bagels aren't on the list. They have to be unique French pastries, in that category. Bagel, no, is more in the bread category. But yes, I just, that's something I'm known for, something I sometimes do pastry reviews and things like that, so I just threw it in for a little twist.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just thinking of just eating some sort of croissant now. With jam.
You're thinking eating. I was just saying in Twitter, you want to put in something personal to make it a little bit less, corporate and stiff, right? I mean, that's part of what the deal is with Twitter, right?
Yeah, I think even beyond Twitter now, with so much social media, there's such a blend of personal brand and professional brand. So you see much more of that today than, for example, you did 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Whitney doing a video just taking a bite out of something like a croissant or a cream bun, just going, wonderful, and then just hang up.
Well, maybe that will come. That's not a bad idea.
That's an excellent idea, because that would go along with the Vine videos that have to be super, super short, and then you can also post it on Instagram, super, super short. It's just like you hold up the pastry, take a bite, done.
Yep, that's a great idea. I just might be doing that.
Yeah, go for it. Just credit us. We'd appreciate it.
I will. I will.
Whereas my friends are saying now, it's like, oh my God, we take any pictures at a family event, and they say, tag us, tag us, tag us.
Oh, God.
I know, there's this definite self-focused movement, which is, again, challenging from a personal brand, because especially in the writing world, you've got to promote yourself, but how do you do that in an authentic, non-capital E ego way?
That is hard, and we can talk about that, because I think I was just writing. We're working on collecting together some of our experiences in the last 4 years into a book called "Don't Write Like We Talk," because I have a book called "Don't Write Like You Talk," so I thought "Don't Write Like We Talk" either.
I know this is directed at me, by the way.
I ran across one of the chapters, and it was, what do you do if your propensity is not to be automatically self-promoting? What if you don't have, that inner salesperson that finds it really easy to say, hey, let me tell you about me. Let me tell you about me again. How do authors do that? Because authors have a terrible time with the whole, hey, talk about me.
It's so true. Well, I think most people I know, I work with authors, but also many other types of entrepreneurs and businesses. And most people I know really do not like promoting themselves. It's the last thing in the world that they want to do. And as you mentioned, a lot of authors don't. I think a lot of authors are more introverted. And so I think the best thing to do is just team up with someone who is. And even when I worked at a big corporation, sometimes the best people in the world to help tell your story are your customers or your partners, and so you let them lead and toot your horn for you. And so authors can do that too. That's basically what's being done when readers write reviews online, or when people jump on Facebook and say what a great book this is. So I think that's one little secret. People can sort of rely on others to help them do that.
Do you think the salesman concept, though, has been really destroyed over the years? I know I'm in a position where I need to sell things, and I often feel like, I don't know, like a used car salesman, with the slicked, greasy hair and the oversized jacket, and like, hey, I got a deal for you.
Yep. Well, it's funny you mention that because there's a presentation that I do often, and I have a picture of a slimy car salesman. Not that all of them are slimy, but yeah, I think it used to be so much easier for individuals and organizations to sell their products. You would take out a newspaper ad or billboard, and it was very straightforward, and there wasn't this negative impression of sales. And then absolutely, I think in the 70s and 80s, sales became this very bad thing, and consumers didn't trust corporations. And so now we're in this place where it's so easy to do it with social media, and you do have to find a way to be authentic and non-salesy, even though you are trying to sell your books and get people to buy them. So it's a little challenging, but there are definitely ways of doing it where you're not that slimy salesperson.
I guess you shouldn't say to someone, I've got a deal for you, but only for you. That
right, probably not. But you see that all the time, and I see authors doing that too, these kind of cheesy email, spammy looking things that, if you buy my book today, then you're going to get this, and they can be...
Right.
I mean, I see so many of those, and I just hit delete, delete, delete. They just, to me, they don't work.
I've stopped. I get these messages, follow someone on Twitter or wherever, and you get that direct message that says, hey, thanks for the follow. I'd love for you to reach out, and here's a link to my book. So,
right.
See you later. Unfollow.
Right. And yet at the same time, I'm on a few author groups and kind of email groups, and everyone is very supportive within those groups of making self-plugs and, hey, would you guys buy my book or tweet out for me? And yet I still find myself, I'll do it if I authentically want to or the topic of the book is of interest to me, but if it isn't, I just don't feel like I can risk putting that out to my fan base that I've worked hard to build up. If there was a book about used car sales, then it's probably not going to be appealing to me. So even though you're on an email share with me, I'm really not going to go out there and promote it. It just wouldn't be authentic for me or you or my followers.
We'll go down there. Was it Glenn Ross line?
Right. Right.
Anyway,
Right.
I won't quote
Now,
that.
You said, I'm just going to follow this because I work with authors a lot, and I agree with you that it's easier to say, okay, you fan, you've been a great fan. Can you go say something nice about me because I'm awkwardly have difficulty saying something nice about
right.
myself. How do you find those? I think one of the challenges, and I don't know if you've gone, this might be out of your sphere, but one of the big challenges for authors right now is getting the reviews, is to actually, trying to get that quote spontaneous response and get it out there. Do you have any suggestions, for how to manage that? Because it's very difficult. And as you said, unless the book is very, is the right fit, that can be difficult. I'm doing a review for an author who did a Facebook party for me, and I wanted to thank her, and so I read her book, and I'm going to do a review for her. So that's the connection. But it's a romance novel, and I don't necessarily read romance, so it was out of my genre, so to speak. But I'm happy to do the work. How do you go about that, or what would you suggest for authors on how do you corral all of that goodwill so that you don't have to say it all yourself?
Well, I think you bring up a good point. And of course, it's like friends of mine that are selling Girl Scout cookies, and maybe that's not my favorite cookie in the world, but I'm going to support their child and buy a box. I do actually like Girl Scout cookies, but of course, they're depending on who it is, and if it's a family member or a long-term client or something, we do go out of our way. But otherwise, I think, as you said, if you're trying to corral goodwill, you've just got to make the ask. And I think so many people, as we were discussing earlier, are just afraid of asking friends, colleagues, clients for support because of that negative image of, well, I'm going to be pushy or I'm trying to sell something. But so many people love to help us. They're already your fans. They love what you do. They're more than happy to do it. So I have no problem and always encourage people to just ask. Even with my own book, mine is a marketing book called Propel. Many, many times when I was launching it, I would send out through my email newsletter or on social media, ask people to would you consider buying it or writing a review? And those that want to will, and those that don't. And I don't take offense, but out of my group of people, there were some that helped me build that goodwill. So I think it's just making the ask. I think the second important tip is to make it easy for people. For example, there was a business that I worked with a couple of years ago in a very different industry, not in the book industry, but it was a all-natural, sustainable nail salon, kind of a high-end boutique. And she was trying to win an award that one of our local media outlets puts out every year here in Seattle, Washington, like the best of 2015. And so she said, oh, I don't know how to do this. How do I get people to vote for me? And I said, just ask them. Just craft a very simple email, send it to your top clients, and make it easy for them. Put the deadline, here's the link, here's what you need to do. And sure enough, just sending that out and making that ask, guess what? She won. So if she hadn't just made that simple ask and built it up into this huge thing, she may not have won that really incredible award that has then gone on to lead to much more business for her. So those are a couple ideas.
As someone who doesn't go to beauty salons,
why not? You're missing out. It's a new thing now for men. Lots of men are doing it. Jump on the bandwagon.
I'd rather not. I'm all about equality, but that draws the line. Now, how can you, this is way off topic now. How can you have a sustainable, natural beauty salon? Aren't you putting chemicals on your body, like nail polish?
They're natural chemicals. Okay, work with us.
Hey,
they are natural chemicals. Yes, she hit it on the head. It's interesting. Since you don't go to salons, I'm not a huge salon person either, but a lot of women's salons are known for using really bad chemicals, being full of toxic fumes and acrylic nails and lots of bad stuff. And so she has a really small, eco-friendly designed salon. It's just herself, and she uses all natural products. So that's exactly how she does it. And she's won lots of awards for being, the first sustainable, eco-friendly salon, again, here in Seattle.
like mud.
I love Seattle.
I was reading the first part of your book because you give the first chapter away on your website, and I'm sort of going through something, so I won't sort of bore people with that. But you're talking about you had someone in front of you, a mother and daughter that was selling chocolate. Mm-hmm. And you asked them that question, who are your customers? And their response was people who like chocolate. Which
not so good.
I thought was fascinating because if you apply that to authors, you say, who are your customers? And they'll come back and say, well, people who like to read.
Right.
Yeah, they do that, and it's a disaster.
Yeah.
Yes, you would know from all the people you coach, for sure.
Yeah.
So how can you apply that? What was your answer to them when they said, well, people who like chocolate?
So my mind went exactly where both of you went. It's just too large of an audience, especially for a small business person to try to tackle. And even large corporations like Starbucks don't go after all the people in the world who like to drink coffee. Their business model has changed, but it's been the people that are willing to pay $5 for a cup of coffee that like to be treated a little special. And, you get all these descriptors of who your true audience is. So that's what I did with them. Was they had a very hard time describing who their audience was. But once I asked them more about their products and the process of making those chocolate truffles, it turned out that they used all natural, organic, local ingredients. And the chocolate truffles were this old family recipe from the mom. And the truffles were not the normal small golf ball sized truffles, but were actually really big, like the size of a small orange, mandarin orange. And they were wrapped in these beautiful colored foils, like a beautiful green foil for the chocolate mint one and a beautiful purple foil for the chocolate raspberry one. And so after listening to all of those details, then it started to become clear to me and to them, okay, now who do we go after? Who do we market these truffles to, knowing those things? Okay, it's going to be the local co-ops and unique markets in Seattle that buy those types of cool indie, types of gourmet food products. And we're going to also go market to really unique little restaurants in town that would like to put a large truffle on the menu that someone could actually cut up and share as a dessert item that, again, would appreciate local organic. We also went after, since here in Seattle, there are a lot of big corporations like Microsoft, Amazon, Boeing, Starbucks, Expedia, Nordstrom. These could be really nice high-end corporate gifts instead of the cheesy made in Washington traditional things that we have. These were really unique and packaged in a really unique way. So to me, the same thing would be true for an author. So, okay, I'm trying to sell my book, like my book, it's a marketing book. So I'm going to sell it to everybody who needs marketing help. Well, that is just impossible. So once I share more of my story and my history and my experiences or the types of people that I work with, or the details about the book, how I wrote it, that it's very simple and straightforward and written in a more of a conversational way, that leads you to realize, oh, the target audience for my book may not be a corporate vice president of some massive Fortune 500 company, but it might be more targeted to a small business owner, those types of things. So that's where I start, is getting really clear on the story of the author and who he or she is, and then also getting really clear on details about the actual book, and then figuring out what types of audiences reveal themselves after we get that information.
Can something be too niche? Something that doesn't necessarily need too much marketing. I'm thinking of a conversation that someone had said to me about giving me a marketing plan for my business, and I went, I'm kind of booked till January. I don't think I need any marketing at the moment.
You're sort of OD'd on word of mouth.
That's a good problem to have.
I know,
it is a good problem to have.
Oh, yeah, it keeps me awake at night trying to shuffle everything. But I just think, people always talk about, you've got to market. And they say to me, what's your marketing regime? It's like, well, I answer the phone.
Well,
I love your marketing techniques. Yeah. It just puts it all in perspective.
You can see I'm not really the salesman type. I don't go out there. And they were saying to me, you should do cold calls. Like, why? They ring me. But anyway, I'm thinking of, like, from some people that write books, some of them can be very very narrow. And so when you say, well, what's your customer or what's your reader that you're appealing to? And it's, it's a sci-fi, erotica, horror. You're thinking, right, well, there's like 3 people that live with their mum that read those things. How do you...
You'd be surprised.
How do you then market that out if it's very sort of in a narrow field? Do you try and break it out and push it out to other areas to see if it'll get any traction?
Well, I think even within a very narrowly defined niche, there are lots of opportunities to break out of that. I mean, you just mentioned sci-fi, erotica, horror. So even within that, we could break it apart to the people that like sci-fi, and then the erotica, and then the horror. And then even within that, are we looking at men or women? Are we looking at younger, older? And there's so much fun that you can have even within that really specific, narrow niche. And I think, when I first started my business, I used to work at Microsoft. And at that large corporation, we definitely broke down audiences and looked at different niche groups. And I learned that skill set while I was there and how important it was. Then when I started my business, I didn't want to do that because I felt so limited, and I'm going to lock myself in. Like, if I just promote to women business owners or small business owners, it's so limiting. But over time, I realized within that there's so much freedom and creativity, and you can find a lot of interesting audiences within that narrow subset.
Well, I think of a book that I did see posted up the other day online, and it was a lady hugging a horse, and it said, "But you're a horse," was the title.
But you're a horse?
Yeah.
Okay.
How do you market that?
He's a little stuck on that one.
Well, was it about caring for your horse or loving your horse? What was it about?
I'm not
I think
sure.
the guy was really a horse, and she was in love with him in that way.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think the horse had hands. That was weird. Anyway.
Well, that's weird. Okay, moving right along. What I think when somebody, and correct me if I'm wrong, because if you're a solopreneur or you're an entrepreneur with or you want to sell your books, you're an author, and when you say, oh, I don't want to limit my market, which means you can't afford to market to everybody, right?
Right.
I think that sometimes we don't realize or consider what the numbers really are. So when we say, I want to limit my market, for me, if I want to limit my market, oh, now I'm just down to 300,000 possible readers. And if I sold 300,000 copies of my book to that quote limited market, I would be over the moon.
That's a great point.
So I think that sometimes we don't visualize what kind of numbers we're talking about. So, if you're a single consultant, if you have, 15 clients, that's huge. That's more work than you can handle. Or, with Damien with his workload.
Yep.
So, you could reach 150 people, get 10% of that, and you're good to go.
Yep. I think that's a great point to definitely focus on those numbers and go get those numbers, and your eyes will pop open at the opportunity that's there. You're exactly right.
Yeah, so I just think that sometimes people, and because I hear it too, I hear it from authors where you say, well, who's your audience? They'll say, well, everybody who reads. It's like, oh, seriously?
Well,
yeah, it's very true.
It's like a cosmetic company. It's like, we're good for everybody who has skin.
Right.
That is not helpful.
No, it's not.
and
not helpful at all. Let's try something else.
Now,
Right.
you mentioned you worked for Microsoft. I
Yes.
got a very, very, deep, important question. Did you get to meet Bill Gates?
I did.
Right.
I did several times.
Good. I was worried if you said no, I'd have to cancel like half this podcast.
Delete. End the call now.
Oh, it's nice chatting to you. Okay, so when you first met him, what was the first thing that went through your mind?
I was nervous because I was very young and early in my career, and I thought, I can't believe I'm meeting the head of this company, and I'm supposed to be telling him how to handle a Wall Street Journal interview. So that's my honest answer.
Oh, so it wasn't like, oh, your breath smells like milk or something.
No.
It wasn't, something random.
No, because when I worked at Microsoft, it was still at the time where everyone was enamored with him, and he was actually known for being really tough and yelling at people and throwing chairs. I mean, it was a whole different time from where we are today with the Gates Foundation and philanthropy. It was back when technology was competitive and Microsoft was at the top of its game. So very, very, very different time period. So, and I wasn't really close enough to him to smell his breath. Let's just be honest.
It must be daunting though. Like if you've gone in there and you're supposed to tell him how he needs to behave, with an interview or that sort of thing. I mean,
it was daunting. That's exactly what I was supposed to be doing, because it's such a different time than it is now. I mean, that was a time when people still read newspapers, and a story in the New York Times or Wall Street Journal could just make or break a company's reputation. And so as a publicist on the corporate communications team, we would build relationships with reporters and try to get a sense of where their story was going and what investigative questions they were going to be asking. And so you would schmooze with these reporters and try to get a whiff of that. And then that was our role then, to let Bill Gates or Steve Ballmer at the time or any executive, hey, this reporter is going to say something bad about this feature in Windows or Office, and you've got to head him off. So that's exactly what the job was.
Did you get a vibe from him, though, that he was that big, he's Bill Gates, or was he still a bit nerdy, like just down to earth?
He was very down to earth. No, he didn't have an ego at all. And in those times that I worked with him, he listened to me. I mean, he didn't say, pipe down, young woman, you know nothing.
Go away, Wanda. Yeah, Whitney. Oh, sorry. Not paying attention.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if he listened, because that's something that some CEOs never understand.
Right.
You need to listen to the people you hired, because if you were smart, they're smarter than you are.
Right. I definitely was not smarter than Bill Gates. And to this
But
day,
you were
I'm
smarter
still not.
in your field. You were smarter
Yes.
in
I
what
had
you were
that
hired to do,
information.
and so he should. And I only because I know I'm married to one. The dealing with the CEO can be, that's like a 5-8 person job.
Right,
And,
right.
if they don't listen, then they end up tripping themselves. And clearly, Bill Gates is a smart enough man to listen when people say, "Okay, here's this," and it sounds like he would listen and then perform as you suggest.
Well, and I think at that time in my career, it was interesting, as you would say, to work with a CEO because they're busy. They have a
Oh yeah.
massive company to run. And so you're very efficient with your time. You're not wasting time. You're not wasting communication about nothing. So that is definitely something that I took away that I even think small business owners, authors need to be aware of is when you are self-employed, you're trying to promote your own book, you can waste so much time and not be strategic. And it's really important to be focused on what's important, what's going to sell books and build your reputation and not dink around with much else.
Yeah. How would you, that's a good point. Because sometimes we lament how much time promotion takes versus the writing, and we all want to just be writing. What kind of, in that promotion category, what kind of time wasters are you seeing your entrepreneurs, your business people, they're focusing on something that is not really getting them the traction that they need? What are you seeing as kind of the time wasters in promotion right now?
I think social media is a huge time waster, and I mean that broadly because there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of those tools. But the popular ones, Facebook, Twitter, Vine, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, I think that it's just gotten out of hand, and I see a lot of people wasting time trying to figure out what their content is when their time investment isn't necessarily turning around into book sales. And you have to find the balance because those tools also do build up your personal brand and they show your readers your personality. But I just know a lot of people that get sucked into it and they just worry, am I posting the right things? And maybe their time should be better spent doing some media outreach or doing an event at their local bookstore, some of those old-fashioned tools and techniques that can actually directly lead to sales.
Okay.
So what?
Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say what prompted you to want to write a book?
Well, I love writing, and I've always enjoyed writing, and I've always wanted to write a book. And I think what prompted me was my professional career was moving in a direction where I was doing a lot of paid speaking engagements, workshops, keynotes, and people were asking for a book, and I was disappointing them, and I also was missing a huge opportunity to sell a product. So it was a very practical business reason. Also, I did at the time have people that wanted to hire me but maybe couldn't afford my hourly rate at the time, and I felt like I was not helping people and again didn't have a lower price point for them to buy into some of my tips and practices and philosophies. So those were the main reasons that led me to write the book.
So did you sit down and try and how do you plan something out like this? Because we were chatting to Catherine before about we're putting together a Don't Write Like We Talk, and we've got such a backlog of things that we've done over the last 4 years. How do you then, in your case, consolidate what you've learned from working with Microsoft and being a speaker? And we'll look at some other things, especially with the overseas work you've been doing. How do you condense all that into saying, look, I can put this into a book and help you get to where you need to be?
It was a very hard task for a long time. I played around with, as I said, my content from workshops and keynotes and articles and tried to really boil it down. And I did look at, since mine is a nonfiction how-to book, I just looked at my principles and philosophies and processes that I used with clients and tried to kind of distill it down and really looked at what worked with small businesses I had worked with and artists and corporations. And then, quite honestly, I wrote my book proposal and I shopped it around and I went the traditional route to try to find agents. And I got many rejections, which doesn't feel good. But thankfully, as always, some of those agents were nice enough to tell me, oh, we really like your writing voice, but we don't see a market for this. Or, I kept getting good feedback. We like your voice. We just, we're not sure of the concept if it's strong enough. And there are a lot of marketing books out there.
Yeah.
So I eventually ended up hiring this great guy named John Willig, who is an agent, but I can't, and I don't get any commission, but I can't sing his praises enough. I've sent a lot of writer friends to him. He offers like a 1-hour consultation whether your proposal is finished or not, I'll take a look at it and give you my perspective. And so I paid for an hour of his time. And I think we spent 2.5 hours on the phone, and I had pages of notes. And he said, take my feedback, and if you're interested, redo your proposal and send it to me. And he had really great points and insights about what publishers were looking for, what the trends were showing. So that really helped me. And so I kind of retooled my proposal and pitched it, and within a couple months I had my publisher and I was off and running. So it was a long process of just doing what you guys are doing, kind of distilling down all of the work that you've done the past number of years.
So when you got to that point and then the publisher said to you, now we're going to need you to do a lot of the marketing, did you just go
And they did.
Did you go, oh, well,
they did that.
This is your chance to show that you know what you're doing.
So it was interesting, and you guys know the whole industry is changing. So my book came out a couple years ago, and my agent was great. I mean, I had deals coming in and phone calls with McGraw-Hill and John Wiley, but yeah, they were like, great, can you kick in $50,000 to pay for putting the books in airport stores? And I mean, astronomical amounts of money for a small business owner. And so I ended up going with a smaller size publisher, mine is Career Press, but they were willing to kick in $30,000 in publicity budget. They were willing to do a lot of marketing, and I have loved having them as my publisher. They've been fantastic. But you're right. I mean, they were looking to how many followers I have on Twitter and Facebook, and did I know how to do media interviews and write press releases? They were definitely looking for me, and I think that's the world we're in right now. Authors do have to either do it themselves through self-publishing or be ready to step up and do it even with a traditional publisher.
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah. Thank you for saying that out loud too. I still get authors who just give me this deer in the headlight look when they say, "Oh, I'm just going to go with a big publisher and they'll take care of everything."
Not anymore.
No, they won't.
You're exactly right. And I mean,
wow,
if
so
you
$50,000 to get into the airport stores.
Mm-hmm.
Yikes.
Yep.
Oh.
And there is a lot of that pay to play. I even see that sometimes I'm flipping around on TV and I see, like on the Dr. Oz show or trying to think, Steve Harvey show. I've seen more and more authors and they're promoting a book, but it definitely looks like it's a pay to play. It's not we're giving this book away, but it's more of a sales push. So I can't imagine how much that is to be on a national TV show.
I guess you can tell that they're paid for when the author's first response to a question is, I'm so glad you asked that question.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're reading it from the card I gave you. Thank you.
Yeah. And look, we get that a little bit. We've had some, potential guests send us, here's some questions I'd like you to ask me. And I refuse to ask any of them.
No, we never do. We tell them that though. It's like, I'm sorry, we're not going to be asking you those, but thanks anyway.
Right. Right, but there is, so many interviews now are kind of canned, and even bloggers will email you the questions and you email back your answers. I think what you guys are doing, there's this lost art form of just actually knowing how to interview and have a conversation, which is very valuable to listeners and readers.
It's just about talking. I want to find out, and this is why, our show has gone on as long as it has, is that I take that viewpoint of view. If I met you at, I don't know, a function, barbecue, wherever,
French bakery.
That'd be it.
There you go.
Mind you,
croissants in the morning.
there wouldn't be much talking because it'd be like, it's good.
That's true.
Okay. Well, besides that, in between, after we swallow.
But it's about, I should cut that out, Catherine. It's about
Sorry.
engaging with someone and saying, well, what do you do? And going backwards and forwards. Because it sounds too structured if I'm there to say, now tell us about your, the vibe of the book that you've written.
Right.
Like, whatever. Who cares?
Yeah.
Right. Oh, I agree. I think that's why you have a really compelling, engaging show. And it goes back to, there's so many people doing podcasts and interviews. What sets it apart? And even, I'll just be honest with both of you, most of the people that interview me, yes, they ask the same questions. They want me to provide the questions, and we go through the book, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. But I think your show is actually fun to listen to and able to listen to because it's not formulaic like that. It is like a conversation.
It's always good to make people squirm too with a question they're not expecting.
Well, that's your job as the newbie. And I've done lots of interviews I've done video interviews, and I do newsletter interviews, and what I noticed, I learned, and just like you've learned over your career as well, is like if it's canned, if you have somebody who is anticipating your question and they've already rehearsed it in their head, or you've talked to them before and then you turn on the mic and the camera and you want them to say that spontaneous thing again.
Right.
And it always looks and sounds awful. And so I've just learned, it's like you just keep people talking, and then I'll edit it and post if I need to, but for the most part, I think it's the conversation that people find interesting, and that people aren't having as many of. People aren't sitting, at least according to all the hysteria now about communication. Nobody's sitting around and talking anymore, and it's like, well, I don't know. I just had a 5-hour dinner with some friends, and we certainly were talking. So I think some of us are holding our end up.
Right. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I do think that people are craving that real-time, real-world conversation.
Yeah, I think so. And so that's part of what we are committed to. And also it helps that we've learned how to do this. I mean, that's
right.
We've done almost 188 shows. You learn how to do it, definitely.
Yes, that's a lot of time investment.
Speaking of shows, talk to me about Whitney and Wyatt.
Ooh, you did some digging, didn't you?
Yeah.
He's good. Can we say?
Well, WhitneyandWyatt.com is a venture that I did with someone who's my best friend now, but we had both left our corporate jobs. I was working at Microsoft. She was working at Expedia. And I studied journalism and communications and have loved video as a format. And she went back to film school after she left her job at Expedia and wanted to become a film producer director. So we teamed up, and this was back in 2007. And before people were really using Facebook. In fact, you didn't want your videos to end up on Facebook because only lame videos were there. And we produced in 1 year over 50 different bite-sized short little video interviews, and it was a lifestyle sort of magazine show. It was when Oprah was still on TV, and we were just realizing as busy women that we didn't have time to sit down and watch an hour-long show anymore, and we thought that with the prevalence of online videos, people were interested in a smaller format. So that was that project, and it was great. We did it for a year, and we released a show every week, and it was going great, and we had advertisers, and people wanted to license our cable companies here in Washington State wanted to license content, and it was just starting to rock and roll. And then she decided that she wanted to step out of the camera and create 2 children.
Right.
So she left the business partnership, and it was very hard for me. It was very hard for me, to be honest, because it was an entrepreneurial goal of mine. But today, she's my best friend, and I'm the auntie of her 2 kids, and I'm actually working on a new video project as we speak. So
that was going to be my question. Now that it's a little bit easier with things like YouTube, you can stream live straight to YouTube now from the dashboard, or Google Hangouts like we're doing. Is that something that you want to jump back into and do a web series again?
Yeah. So I think what I learned is you do have to use failure as fuel. And I think in any creative job, and writing certainly is creative, it was a good lesson. I mean, we got out there and we tried it, and I learned something about having a business partner, and we both got very clear about what we wanted to do moving forward. She's now behind the camera and produces documentaries and is very happy. And yet I have continued to try some video projects off and on over the years. And yeah, it's definitely something I'm still working on. Currently, I'm kind of looking at what has changed, because as you said, Damien, back then we had to build our own site and build our own video player, and it was very, very technically challenging.
Wow.
Even building email lists, I mean, it was before the Constant Contact and MailChimp days. And today it is so much easier. So, and yet today there's a lot more competition. There are a lot of people doing video shows and web series. So I'm kind of in market research phase right now. I'm thinking of what I'm going to create and where I can add the most value. That's why what you guys were mentioning at the start of our conversation about doing a little clip about eating pastries, I just might put that in there somewhere.
Awesome.
Devin, take it.
Well, how do you then go from just being an everyday person, 9 to 5 job, and then someone says, "Oh, we want you to appear on TV, or we want you to do this on camera"? How do you get used to that? How do you have it so that way you come across as natural? Because being filmed, you become very self-conscious very quickly.
Well, I've actually done a lot of camera work in a variety of roles. I've done commercial work where corporations like Microsoft has actually hired me to be an on-camera host to interview product managers talking about different products. I just finished a couple of videos for the company Staples office supply company. They wanted me to interview some small business owners. And so I actually don't get too nervous in front of the camera. So I'm comfortable popping in and out of the camera. I like that medium. I really love writing also. So I'm looking for some ways to take some of the articles that I write and kind of translate that into video. But I mean, to answer your basic question, one other thing I've done is I have invested in a coach, an on-camera coach over the years, especially early in my career. And it really helped me stand still and not wave my hands around, and not, figure out what to wear and not say and like all the time. So I do think that it's very important to make those kinds of investments with some of the things that we're working on.
Yeah, I have a concern that, we're looking at maybe doing the video concept as well for this, because a lot of podcasts, when they live stream, they'll video it. I just know I'm going to get the itchiest nose. And I don't scratch my nose at all.
He's ready. I mean, we're not going to even practice this until another week, and he's ready.
I know.
I got my nose itching.
Itching is fine. Picking, not so fine.
Yeah, not so good.
And how do you then train yourself to I don't know, put a filter up? Because if I'm sitting here, I don't know, something annoys me, I'll be rolling my eyes, going, really?
Yeah, but I think that's part of your brand, and I think that. I mean, just what you're saying. If you want to itch, I mean, that's kind of the style of this show. That's audio based. I would say, don't change that. Don't go changing. Just try to please us. Just be yourself, and that's your brand. I mean, that you can see that with a lot of people that even have national talk shows. They're just kind of being their goofy selves.
I'm going to end up with no shirt on, aren't I?
Well,
you can go without the shirt. I might go ahead and still wear one.
I think that's a good idea.
No.
Yeah.
But at the same time, again, I think that while we are in this do-it-yourself world, I think some of the things that are rising to the top, people are taking that little extra investment. So it's just like hiring Catherine to be your writing coach. Like, it takes a financial and time commitment, but it's going to make you better at your game. And hiring someone for a couple hours to help me many years ago in front of the camera helped me up my game. And so it might be something that you want to invest in just to get a little bit of feedback. And that person can still give you feedback on, itch your nose more, or the woman that I worked with, I'm still my authentic self. She just helped me find ways to bring that out and be a little more confident on camera or in front of an audience.
So do you think that's something newbie authors could do? If they've got their book, they could just jump in front of the webcam that's built into their laptop.
Oh yeah, tell them to do that. Yeah.
Yep. I think again, it's a matter of anyone could do that now. We can all do that, and there are a lot of those types of videos out there. So what do you do in yours that's still authentic but makes it stand out and makes people want to watch it? Is there some really small, unique thing that you can do that makes yours a little bit different?
And I don't know why someone who's listening, Blood Hunter Zenith, says, "Are you new to YouTube?" No, I'm on YouTube all the time.
That's not it. It's
bit too
where
much.
we get that piece. It's the actual creation of it and being comfortable with it. Because lots of people, and myself included, we just don't like seeing ourselves on camera. And I think just even the thought of that will freeze definitely freezes your average author who's used to being, comfortably ensconced in a dark room and nobody
Right.
sees them, let alone themselves seeing
Right.
themselves.
I do
That's
not I
super
do
scary.
not like seeing myself on camera. I like being on camera, but I hate watching and having to edit. So I'm with everybody on on that point. But I
Yeah.
also think again, there's so much pressure, kind of what we were talking about earlier, for everyone to do everything. We have to be good at taking pictures and doing videos and writing blogs and tweeting. And I just think we don't. If you are an introvert, and I say this to my introverted clients all the time, if you like writing, then stick with writing. I mean, don't stick yourself in front of a camera. And if
Yeah.
you hate writing, but you're really comfortable in front of a camera, then focus on that. Like going back to that concept of focusing on your strengths,
Mhm.
I think will always win. Your audience, you'll find your audience in that format that you're comfortable with.
Now, there's a video of you being interviewed on some morning show.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever been in an interview where you've sat down and you're looking at them going, you have no idea? And how do you cover that? Do you get into like a autopilot mode?
Do you mean you have no idea what
To the interviewer? You know when they come across as so fake, and
Oh.
especially morning shows, I find like you should not be that happy at 7 a.m.
They're paid to be happy.
They are. Well, that is interesting you say that, because I feel very lucky. I'm not going to slam anyone. I feel very, 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 very lucky, especially as an author. I've received a lot of media coverage and positive coverage. And I did a lot, when my book came out, I did a lot of early morning radio shows. And you're right. It's like, hey, we're Dan and Dawn and welcome
Right.
to the show. But yeah, you have to put on your game face. At that moment, I'm an author. I'm trying to help them be successful and create a fun, upbeat show for their listeners at 8 in the morning. And and they would ask me a couple standard questions. So I think you just have to put on your game face and get out there, and that's when you're selling your book. But I'm still my authentic self. I mean, I'm actually a morning person. I'm actually a happy, upbeat person, so it wasn't that hard for me. But
Right.
yeah, I've been lucky. I think all the media people that I've worked with have been, for the most part, authentic, engaged. They took the time to at least ask a couple questions that were relevant. But I know what you're saying. It would be hard for some people to feel like, oh God, I gotta do this. But that's what all the famous authors are doing too. They're doing their book tours and playing the game and going to the book author lunches, and that's what they have to do.
I could just picture me being interviewed at that time in the morning, and you'd have the guy going, hey, you're listening to 72.3 and the traffic is banked up out there. Hey, Damien, how are you? Oh my God, what is wrong with you? Calm down.
Be the nightmare interview. And I think, Whitney, you said something really important that is not something that people focus on, but I have, and it really worked for me. Your job as a guest is to make that host's life and interview the best it can be. You're there to help them, help it be fun. I did a TV interview, and when I sat down and I'm talking about my book and a book fair, okay, not riveting stuff. And so I've got the hosts on either side of me, and all I did was I watched the first 20 minutes. They had made some sort of reference in the first 20 minutes. And so when I came on, I made another reference to it. They loved it because I was giving them continuity in the show, and it made a real difference. So I think it's our job as guests to make sure that the whole thing is smooth, because if you make them happy, then they will ask you back.
Yes, exactly. I couldn't agree with you more. And I always see the media, I mean, going back to Microsoft days, I see them as an extension of your customers. I mean, they're helping you reach more customers. So if you can, as you said, make it fun and help them do their job and be a great guest, it's good all around.
Yeah, definitely. And then you can develop, I think that, word gets out fast. And so you develop a reputation of being an easy guest. That's a pretty good reputation to have.
Yep.
And not just easy.
Yeah, not just easy.
Not that kind of easy.
No, we've got
Depends on the show, I guess.
we have segments we need to move on to, but I've got that question that I often ask most people is that we have our newbie listeners. What's a number one tip that you can give them when it comes to being an author?
I think the number one tip that a lot of people skip over is to be more strategic. And by that, that's the first thing actually that I do talk about in my book is it is easy to jump into, oh, I'm going to have a book event, or I'm going to start doing social media, or I'm going to make my cool website, produce a video, and all these cool tools and tactics and toys. But really to step back and get clear, take some time to get clear about what am I trying to do here? Am I trying to build a platform that's going to set me up to be a long-term author with multiple books? Do I just want to write this one book and then I'm going to go deep in this and spend the rest of my career talking about this topic? You know, is this book kind of a fun hobby thing, or is this going to be my livelihood? I think taking a little bit of time to be strategic and have some intention about what you're trying to do when it comes to writing, then can really inform and fuel all those other fun, cool things and help you make some decisions about what you should be doing. And again, not waste your time and energy and resources.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on. Please stick around for the segments we've got. Your book, Propel, is up on Amazon and also WhitneyKeyes.com. Where can people find you out on the internet other than WhitneyKeyes.com?
That is really the main place. So
Right.
I would be happy if they visited me there.
Awesome. Well, should we do a tortured sentence?
Yes.
All right. I should probably cue that up.
Next time, don't put the wrong emphasis on the right syllable. Tortured sentences.
I actually had that sent to me by Bill Gates.
Aren't you so cool?
Yeah. He sent this to me and said, you should hear Whitney when she was trying to tell me what to do. Anyway, I've got a very short tortured sentence I'm going to sneak in before we do the actual one that I've
You
been
go.
sent.
That sounds great. What'd you find?
So this is the only negative review on Whitney's book, Propel. The first line cracked me up. It said, I couldn't get through the introduction of this book. And I thought, that makes no sense to me. The rest of the review is weird. I think you should go and read it. I don't know if you've seen it, Whitney, at all.
I have seen it, and
I lost all my
Someone told me
respect for the writer.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I lost all my respect for the writer before getting 25 pages in. Okay. Did they have a lot of respect for you before? Were they a good friend? I'm confused. Yeah.
That's what happens when jilted boyfriends write reviews.
I know,
Well,
right?
that's exactly what I was going to say.
You see,
It had come to my attention that could have been the person who wrote that. But no, I welcome all feedback. There's always something to learn. You know, didn't break my heart, so.
so I just need to check, Whitney Keyes, that's not a pen name, is it?
No, it's not
Good.
a pen name.
Because
Because we're not fans of pen names.
the person that left this review has called themselves pen name, so you lose an extra star just for being a retard. Anyway, now,
Yes, exactly. Just for being, etc. Yeah.
this...
It is. It's hard, though. I mean, I've seen so many, especially writer friends, get so upset by negative reviews online and negative social media. It is really hard not to take it personally when it's your baby of a book.
I don't know. Yeah. I think I would need
Damien's
some...
my secret weapon. He's the one who's going to write the bad reviews to begin with so I can get it over with.
There you go. Or he can read them. I always say have somebody else read them and let them take that negative energy. But
Yeah.
again, you can always learn something from it and then move on. Got to keep it in perspective.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would learn from it is I'd probably need a social media coach that would say, don't respond.
Right. Hold back.
Anyway, now this actual tortured sentence, this was another one of those fiction contest things, wasn't it?
Yes. This is from the. It was a dark and stormy night, and you can get the collections. This is from the 2004 contest, and their subtitle is "Where WWW means Wretched Writers Welcome."
Oh. Right.
Such a fun thing. Do you want to read it?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Contessa's heart was pounding hard and fast, like an out-of-balance clothes washer, which can get that way if you mix jeans with a lot of light things. Though the new ones have some sensor thing to counteract that or shut off. But the Contessa's heart didn't have anything like that, so she had to sit down and tell Don Ronaldo to keep his hands to himself for a while. That's hot.
That's long, too.
That's part of where the humor in it, of course, is to juxtapose something completely ridiculous with something else. So it's like, how many times do you say in a romance novel do you bring up laundry?
Right.
Yeah, with the modern
The
twist.
washing machine.
I'd like to see
Out of
that
balance.
in Catherine's book,
Yeah.
actually. You know, you could have charity. You know, it's that sort of world. And you're like, oh, her heart was beating like a brand new washing machine.
Good one.
Except she went back into time. Anyway.
Yeah, and then I went back into time and there were no washing machine scenes from there.
Yes. All right, let's do a
can I
prompt.
All right.
You can read
So
it.
here's our prompt because we are at the equinox. Weather most definitely affects our moods, but does it affect your writing? Do you need a perfect temperature or the perfect weather to write? Is there an ideal day that inspires you? So write about inspirational weather. Write about deadly weather.
Right. I don't know. I don't get into weather all that much. I just know that the weatherman lies a lot.
I know it's the one thing in our world that's amazing that technology still can't predict the weather.
I think it's kind of nice that we've got something left that we can't
I agree.
predict.
No, that's great perspective. Yep.
It's like, oh, good. There's something that's still going to be a surprise, kind of like earthquakes. Still a surprise.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
Yep.
Yes. Well, we had our government here is investigating our weather bureau to make sure they're not like fudging the figures.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Someone up high must be really annoyed going, you said it would rain today and it hasn't rained. Who cares?
We just report rain with a very hopeful affect. Like, oh, there's a 13% chance of rain. Woo! And we all run around and we get really excited and flush our toilets. And then, of course, it never happens. So it's much more in the fantasy world for us. It's in the fiction section now for Fox News. It's better.
Ours is more doom and gloom. You know, they get one little blip that there might be a bit of rain or thunder. And it's batten down the hatches, here's the numbers for the emergency services, blah, 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 blah. And then it can be sunny all day.
That's how it is here, too. They blew it way out of proportion.
Pray to your higher being. Hide in the bathtub because I saw a cloud today. Anyway, now, word of the week. It comes from A Word a Day with Anu Garg. And this word is kenning. You're making them easier. Tell you.
No, that's what I'm finding. What can I say?
It's a figurative, usually compound expression used to describe something. For example, whale road for an ocean and oarsteed for a ship. Yeah, they're crap. Kenning. They killed Kenning. I don't know.
Yeah, they killed Kenny. That's right.
Anyway, so be it. Anyway, now, Whitney, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to?
I'd love to give a shout out to Maria Ross, who was one of your previous guests, and she introduced me to your site and your amazing show.
Awesome.
Very good. I'm glad she did.
You see,
Yeah, she's a neat writer because she wrote a non-fiction business book about branding, and then unfortunately she had a brain aneurysm, and then she got very vulnerable and wrote about that personal story, which took her career in a whole different direction. So she's very inspirational to me that you don't have to just stick to one genre.
No, it's good. You can tell that, you know, you've heard our show before, because when I ask, is there anyone to give a shout out to, most people that haven't go, ooh, that's put me on the spot.
Which is our intent.
Yes.
Yes. No, you're not going to stump me.
You're good.
You
We
did
appreciate that.
stump me with your Bill Gates question earlier.
That was the idea.
Mission accomplished.
Yes. Now, Catherine, is there anyone you want to say hi to, shout out to?
Do I have anybody? No, I just got my media certification certificate in the mail today. So shout out to Sonoma State University where I earned this and got a job because I actually went to school and got a job. How do you connected together? Just to shout out that can happen.
Oh. So you didn't... Oh, I thought you just ordered that from certificates.com.
No. You know what they have is that and it's just like when I don't know if you've ever tried to Xerox your diploma.
Mm-hmm.
You Xerox your diploma. I love this. You know, yay UCs. But you Xerox your diploma, and when it comes out of the Xerox, on the background, it says, this is a copy, this is a copy, this is a copy, this is a copy.
No,
so there's,
I didn't know that.
they have like these fail safes. It's like trying to, you can't Xerox money. It comes out with comes out all funky. So they have fail safes within the thing, the certificate itself. So I'm sure in this case, if I tried to Xerox it or order a new one, that it would have some sort of weird thing on it that says, no, this isn't real. She didn't really earn this. So,
Came from a
I am
cereal
going to
box.
take a picture of it and post it though, because I think that it's kind of cool.
Cool. Well, I want to give a shout out to Kiara Ballantyne. Big congratulations to her, because she's officially signed with Evolved Publishing to publish all her epic fantasy books, especially In the Company of the Dead is coming out. So,
well, congratulations. That's great.
congratulations to her.
Yeah, definitely congratulations.
So we'll have her back on and ask her what it was like to deal with a publisher.
I think we should.
All right. Well, that'll do it. Thanks, Whitney, for being on. It was good.
Oh, my pleasure. True pleasure. Wonderful to talk with you guys.
Yeah, you were a great guest. Thank you.
Now, who have we got on next week?
Paul Day, who is an author that I'm going to just say it. You recommended?
Thanks. I don't know.
So we'll see if he makes it on.
Hopefully, he's here in Adelaide. I have to drive around to his house and knock on the door.
There you go.
You're late.
It may come to that.
Yes. All right. Well, until next week, we'll see you then.
Until next week.
Your book starts here on the Newbie Writers Podcast.